Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're taking a massive look at a fundamental shift in how we view the sky right above us. If you think you already know what SpaceX is up to, well, prepare for a pretty wild paradigm shift. It's going to feel a little bit like the Matrix meeting a gritty, industrial, steampunk reality. Today, we're basically booting up the system to answer one central question. Why does Starmind power space, and how exactly is it quietly positioning itself to become a literal orbital brain for our planet?
Okay, let's dive into this, because right now, literally everyone is arguing about Starlink as if satellite internet is the biggest breakthrough ever. But here's the fascinating and honestly mind-bending reality. Starlink, it was only phase one. The internet satellites we all know are likely just the mere foundation of a much, much larger plan. The next phase isn't about upgrading your download speeds, it's about where artificial intelligence actually lives. So let's download the architecture for this multi-tiered orbital computer so you have a clear map of what we're looking at. We'll be covering 1. The Starlink distraction, 2. Earth's massive AI bottleneck, 3. Starmind, compute in space, 4. Stargaze and Kessler syndrome, and finally, 5. The ultimate orbital mesh network.
Starting off with Section 1, the Starlink distraction, Phase 1 of the master plan.
To really grasp this master plan, we first need to establish Starlink's true purpose. It's really merely the communication layer, you know? It's just the foundational highway for what's about to come. Currently, we're looking at over 10,000 operational satellites revolving around our planet at roughly 340 kilometers up, traveling at a staggering 17,000 miles per hour. Now, if you're picturing a totally crowded, congested sky up there, let me reassure you, space is massive. If you mapped all 10,000 plus of those satellites onto a standard-sized classroom globe, the dots would be so incredibly small, they'd be smaller than a single pixel. You wouldn't even be able to see them.
And this beautifully illustrates the micro level of what this grid currently achieves. Think about direct-to-cell connectivity. You could be out in absolute nowhere's land, right? Total dead zone, zero terrestrial cell towers. And your phone can still directly communicate with a satellite zipping by at 17,000 miles per hour. It brings remote access directly to the individual. But here's the thing, SpaceX isn't stopping at 10,000. They plan to scale this up to 30,000 or even 40,000 satellites in the not-so-distant future. But why on Earth, or rather why in space, do we need that many? Well, to understand the macro level of what this grid will really do, we actually have to look back down at Earth.
Which brings us to Section 2, Earth's massive AI bottleneck, the limits of terrestrial compute.
To understand this bottleneck, we have to shift our perspective from that high-tech, weightless orbital mesh down to the gritty, grounded, and incredibly resource-heavy steampunk reality of our terrestrial power grid. Because Earth simply has limitations. Just look at the stark contrast between terrestrial and space infrastructure. Down here, AI data centers are exhausted, physical beasts. I mean, they don't just need megawatts, they are hungry for gigawatts of power. A single AI data center might literally use more power than an entire city, and they consume millions of gallons of water every single day just to keep those chips from melting down. Plus, you have severe local regulations. Data centers are desperately trying to build right next to major natural gas-burning power plants just to get enough juice, which causes massive local uproar and takes forever to deploy. Space, on the other hand? Space offers infinite real estate, zero terrestrial regulations, and boundless, completely untapped solar energy potential. So the absolutely crucial point here is that AI is evolving at a terrifyingly rapid pace, a pace that Earth's finite resources just can't sustain. Right now, we're basically in the infancy of AI, relying on GPU compute, but the source material predicts a massive leap to quantum stabilization, which is going to put our current AI to shame, and eventually, that leads to biological computers, or wetware, operating somewhat like the human brain. Simple math tells us that the massive resources needed to facilitate this kind of evolution on our planet is just too much. Earth is literally the bottleneck.
Enter Section 3, Starmind, compute in space, the ultimate orbital solution.
To solve that massive terrestrial bottleneck, the plan is to actually shift the brain of the network into orbit, completely bypassing the limits of Earth's power and water. That recent trademark discovery for Starmind suggests we are quite literally uploading this brain into space. And we're not just talking about a basic chatbot AI here. We are talking about housing AGI, artificial general intelligence. That is an advanced state of intelligence that's smarter than humanity in totality, and running it requires virtually infinite power. By placing these compute nodes in space, they form a massive distributed computer that communicates via laser optics at the literal speed of light. Each satellite just handles a small portion of the processing for the greater good of the network. But you're probably wondering, how do you actually get a supercomputer into space? Well, that brings us to this incredible number, 150. That is the number of tons of cargo the massive SpaceX Starship can haul into orbit. And because Starship is fully reusable, which we've seen proven over and over again with the Falcon 9 rockets launching and landing 30 to 35 times, the cost to deliver massive payloads of compute nodes into orbit drops dramatically. It becomes cheap. It becomes incredibly efficient. It proves this massive starmine infrastructure is physically possible right now.
Moving to Section 4, Stargaze and Kessler Syndrome, protecting the infinite grid. Now, I know what you might be thinking. What happens with all this traffic flying overhead? I mean, we absolutely have to protect this infinite grid. If we map out this expanding ecosystem, you can cleanly see the layered architecture. You have Starlink, which, as we established, is just the communication layer. Then you have StarMind, that's the compute layer processing the AGI. Next is Stargaze, which acts as the air traffic control center for orbit. And finally, Starfall, which is essentially the orbital FedEx, bringing cargo safely from space back down to Earth.
But Stargaze is incredibly crucial because of a very real, very serious threat called Kessler Syndrome. If you don't know what that is, it's a cascading chain reaction of orbital collisions. Think of it kind of like mitosis. 2 pieces of space debris collide and become 4. 4 become 8, then 16, 32, and so on. If left unchecked, this debris multiplies exponentially, potentially creating an impenetrable shell around Earth, literally a prison where we could no longer leave our own planet. Stargaze is the collision avoidance, debris tracking traffic cob designed specifically to prevent this exact apocalypse.
And to ensure the entire orbital infrastructure remains intact and entirely free of terrestrial political boundaries, SpaceX has stated a remarkably open policy. As the source notes, SpaceX actually plans to globally share this Stargaze tracking and avoidance data with all countries, yes, even China and Russia. The absolute priority here is safety in orbit, making sure there are no bumps or collisions up there regardless of whatever terrestrial politics are happening down on the ground.
Which brings us to Section 5, the ultimate orbital mesh network, connecting the cosmos to your living room. Now, what's really interesting about this next part is how we can bring the terrifying scale of AGI back down to a very familiar concept. Think about a standard home Wi-Fi mesh network with a few access points. If you unplug 1 or 2 of those access points, you don't lose your whole internet connection, right? You might get a tiny dead spot in the kitchen, but the network stays online. The orbital AGI network is designed to self-heal exactly the same way. If you have 10,000 compute nodes in space and 100 of them randomly get knocked out, the network literally doesn't care. It simply reroutes around them, and when replacement nodes are launched, the network just says, hey, new access points, come on in, and absorbs them completely seamlessly.
Which leads us to this absolutely staggering figure, 1 million. According to the source material, Elon Musk has actually asked for FCC approval for up to 1 million of these nodes. Just let that sink in for a second. 1 million. We are looking at the foundation for an unstoppable, decentralized brain, completely encompassing the entire planet and totally unbound by Earth's physical limitations of power and water. So what does this all mean for us? It leaves us with this final lingering thought. As you look up at the night sky, knowing there is a self-healing, unseen AGI supercomputer perpetually operating overhead, processing at the speed of light, is this the ultimate evolution of human connection, or are we looking at the blueprints for a real-life Skynet? It's a fascinating, terrifying, and honestly brilliant leap forward. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep looking up, stay curious, and I'll catch you next time.